Hello everyone. Let's learn about hashed page tables and inverted page tables in today's lecture. So we're learning about a series of ways in which we can structure the page tables in the past previous lectures, and we are also learning about paging. So if we have to have a review of whatever we have learned previously, we have seen that the logical memory of a process is broken down into blocks of fixed size called pages. So whatever we are learning about is about we are learning about the different ways to structure the page table. So then we have to know what is the meaning of page table. Page table is a data structure which is used in paging. So what is paging? So basically paging is nothing but the logical memory of a process is broken down into blocks of fixed size called pages. Logical memory is the abstract view of the memory as seen by the user. Okay, so in the concept of paging, memory is viewed as broken down into blocks of fixed size called pages. And that is, I mean, the logical memory. And whenever a process has to be executed, its pages will be residing in the secondary memory. By secondary memory, I mean the secondary storage devices. So when a process has to be executed, that corresponding pages of the process will be loaded into any block of available physical memory from the secondary memory. So a process will be split up into many pages. We came into this concept of splitting the process into pages because we had the problem of fragmentation in contiguous memory allocation. When we allocate the memory consecutively to a process, then it resulted in lots of memory being wasted and becoming unusable due to fragmentation. That's why we came into this concept of paging, where a process will be split up into blocks of fixed sizes, and that blocks of fixed sizes are called pages. So that different pages of a process will be residing in the secondary storage devices, and whenever a process has to be executed, then the pages will be loaded into any block of available memory from the secondary storage device. It will be moved from the secondary storage device to the primary memory whenever it has to be executed. If it is not executed, it will be residing in the secondary storage devices. So to store this information about pages, this is the concept of pages. This is the concept of why a process is split up into pages. Now we need to store the information about the pages of different pages of a particular process. If you take memory, we know that in a multi-programming environment, many processes are going to reside in memory at the same time. So one process may have multiple different pages. So and a page table is maintained for each and every process. One important point which you have to remember is page table is a data structure. It's not a hardware. Page table is a data structure, and that also resides in the memory only. And what is page table? Page table is basically a data structure which contains the base address of each page in the physical memory. In the actual physical memory or primary memory, what is the starting address of each page? That starting address of each page of a process, that is stored in the page table. And we need this page table is maintained separately for each and every process in the system. Okay. So we need some ways to structure the page table. So why we need some ways to structure the page table is, let's say you have one process. So you may have 10 processes in the system. So in a 32-bit logical address space, the size of a page table may go up to 1 million entries. It may have lakhs and lakhs of entries. I'm saying about only one process only. For one particular process, in a 32-bit address space, it can go up to 2 power 32. That is, it can have many lakhs of entries. So, and each entry may occupy up to 4 KB memory size. So when one entry occupies 4 KB memory size and it is going to have lakhs and lakhs of millions of entries, then the size of the page table becomes large. So when the size of the page table becomes large, it is going to consume a lot of memory for storing the page table in the memory. And at the same time, access time to access the page table will also get larger. So that is why we need some ways to structure the page table in such a way that amount of memory needed to store the page table should become less, or else at least the access time to access the page table should be at least minimum. So that is our main motive. So in the last lecture video, we saw the first structuring of page table method. So first method was hierarchical paging. It is also called as multi-level paging. What is multi-level paging is, the page table size becomes large. That is our main problem, right? So in order to avoid that problem, we divide the page table into smaller pieces. In multi-level paging, the page table is decomposed into smaller pieces. But then it is suitable, that multi-level paging scheme is suitable for 32-bit architectures. If your CPU is having a 64-bit architecture, then multi-level paging is not suitable, because it really needs more number of memory accesses, which is not permissible at all. And memory access time also becomes too huge. Okay, for example, if I have to tell you an example, in UltraSpark processor, which is a 64-bit processor, it takes up to 7. If you have to follow this hierarchical paging scheme, it takes up to 7 levels of paging. 7 levels of paging has to be done for 64-bit UltraSpark architecture if it structures a page table by using the hierarchical paging method. So in that case, what happens is memory access time tends to be too huge, because you are going to have multiple levels in your page table. Your page table is going to be decomposed several times. So that means memory access time tends to be too huge. And for that reason, it is not advisable to use the hierarchical paging scheme for a 64-bit architecture. You can use it for 32-bit architectures, but in case if address space becomes larger, for example, for a 64-bit architecture, it's not advisable. So that's why we go in for the next type of page table scheme. Next type of way in which we structure the page table is called as hashed page table. So when do we use this hashed page table is, as I told you, if the address space is large, if you want to handle an address space which is going to contain more than 32 bits, then we make use of a hashed page table. We all know that hashing is a method which is used to find a unique element among a group of similar elements. For example, all the students, we have so many students in the class. How do we differentiate one student, and how do we find out one student uniquely from another student? That is, we may use the USN number of the student to find him uniquely, to identify him uniquely. So just like we use a USN number of the student, in hashing technique also, it is able to find a unique element among a group of similar elements. So what we basically do in hashing is, an element will be given as input to the hash function, and that hash function will convert that element given to it into a unique integer. Okay, you apply the hash function on the element, on any element which is given as input, and the element will be converted to a unique integer after applying the hash function. So why we use a hash table here? To structure the page table, our main problem was memory access time became too huge in our hierarchical paging scheme. And then, but then why they developed the scheme of using hashing for structuring the page tables? We all know that when we use hashing, it facilitates faster searching operation. What is the meaning of faster searching operation? It has been already analyzed and found out that even in the worst case, elements can be searched from the hash table in big O of 1 time. That means how it is able to find the elements in such a short big O of 1 time complexity is because it searches for, when one element is presented in to the hash table, it searches for that element with all the keys in the hash table simultaneously. So with big O of 1 operation, it's able to find, with a minimum searching time, it is able to find the element which is being searched for in the hash table. That's why our main aim for coming into the scheme was to, we wanted to reduce the memory access time. When the page table contains millions of entries, it is going to take a lot of time for searching the page table. We want to reduce the searching time for accessing the page table, and so hashing is a very suitable and apt concept for doing that operation. So here what we basically do is, see this diagram. The CPU is going to generate a logical address. And we all know, in the concept of paging, the logical address generated by the CPU is going to contain two fields. One is page number and the other one is offset. That page number, which is given by the CPU, generated by the CPU, is applied to the hash function. A hash function is applied to the to the page number generated by the CPU. And then that hash function will generate a unique value. Okay, here in this concept of hashed page table, this unique value is called virtual page number, because it doesn't denote the actual page number, but this hash value contains a linked list. That linked list will contain a list of all the page numbers which will hash to the same hash value. Okay. What I mean to say is, let's say I have a number 203. There are many types of hash functions like multiplicative hash function, division hash function. One common hash function is that element mod hash size. That is one commonly used hash function, right? Let's say the hash table size is 100 and the page number which is given here is some 203. 203 mod 100 will also be 3 only. The hash value given by the hash function will be 3. If it is 893, 893 mod 100 also will be 3 only. So whatever, there may be many different page numbers which will all hash to the same hash value. So this hash value in the hash table represents virtual page number, and each hash value contains a linked list which points to the list of all the page numbers which will hash to the same hash value. This hash value is not the page number. This hash value is just a pointer which will point to the actual page numbers, okay, actual logical page numbers. And so here you can see in this linked list contains 3 fields. What are they? First field is the page number. Second field is the frame number. I've already told you frame number is nothing but the starting address of each page in the physical memory. Okay, with the frame number only, the OS will generate the physical address. So we need the frame number to generate the physical address. So we are trying to find the frame number by using the hash table here. The hash table stores all the virtual page numbers, and each virtual page number in the hash table contains a linked list, and that linked list will contain a pointer which points to the list of all the page numbers which will hash to the same hash value. And so the linked list basically consists of 3 fields. First is the page number, second is the frame number. Okay, see here, the CPU's logical address contains one page number. Okay, we are trying to find a match for that page number in the linked list. The first Q doesn't match, but the second one P matches with the page number given in the logical address of the CPU. So whenever there is a match, the corresponding frame number is fetched. First field is the page number. Second field is the frame number of that particular page. So here the frame number of page number Q is S. The frame number of page number P is R. Okay, so there is a match. This frame number matches with the page number given by the CPU. So whenever there is a match, the corresponding frame number is fetched. And what about the third field? The third field is going to contain a pointer to the next element in the linked list. And if there is no next element, it will point to null. Okay, the linked list contains 3 fields. First field is the page number. Second field is your frame number of that particular page in the physical memory. And third field is a pointer which points to the next element in the linked list. So whenever there is a match of the page number with the page number generated in the logical address, then the corresponding frame number of that particular page number is fetched. Once the frame number is fetched, that frame number is added with the displacement which is given in the logical address. We all know that displacement is nothing but position of the instruction within the particular page. If you have a page, I may store some 4 KB bytes of instructions within the page. So for example, that means let's say I'm storing some 10 instructions within the page. What is the position of the instruction which the CPU wants to access? That position is called offset or displacement. That is represented as D here. Okay, D represents the offset or the displacement of the instruction within that page. So to get that particular instruction address, we have to add the position of the instruction with the frame number. So here we add the frame number with the displacement and we generate the physical address. And that physical address is used to access that particular byte of instruction in the physical memory. So this is how hashed page table generally works. So now just go through this theory also. Already I told you hashed page table makes use of a hashing function, and each entry in the hash table corresponds to a virtual page number, which is nothing but the value which will be generated by the hash function. And what is that entry going to store? Each entry in the hash table is going to store a linked list. And linked list is going to contain 3 fields. What are they? It's going to store the page number, the frame number and a pointer to the next element in the linked list. And how is the hash table algorithm going to work? So what it is going to do is there will be a page number given in the logical address, and with that page number we apply it to the hash function, and the hash function is going to hash function is going to generate a hash value. That hash value is called virtual page number. That virtual page number will be the entry in the hash table, and each virtual page number will be compared with the first element in the linked list, which it points to. So whenever there is a match of the page number given in the logical address with the page number in the linked list, the corresponding frame number will be fetched, and that frame number will be used to calculate the physical address, the actual address of each byte of instruction in the physical memory. So this is how the hash table algorithm works. Okay, that is all about the hashed page tables. So one problem here is that again hash page table is also a data structure. This hash table also has to be maintained in the computer's memory. So we need some memory access to store we need to access the memory to access this hash table also. The next type of page table is your inverted page table. So what is this inverted page table is that, so even in your hash table, you have your hashed page table is going to reside in the memory, and memory access takes place. As I already told you, the page table size is our bigger problem. So every process is going to have its own page table. And let's say if you have 10 processes or even 100 processes in the computer's memory, you're going to have one page table is going to occupy 1 million entries. We are going to have 100 page tables in the computer's memory. Not only the pages, we are going to have the page tables of the processes also in the computer's memory. One page table is going to occupy 1 million entries, and each entry of the page table may be up to 4 KB size, including the size which it requires for storing the protection bits, valid, invalid bits, etc. So in that case, the amount of memory, the size of the page table becomes huge. And when the size of the page table becomes huge, searching the page table becomes difficult, and accessing the page table for accessing each and every entry in the page table tends to be a very difficult task, because every memory access is a very costly and time consuming operation. For every memory access, CPU becomes idle and CPU clock cycles are going to be wasted. So because of all these problems, we have come into the next method of structuring the page table. So this next method is called as inverted page table. So remember that why we have this third method of structuring the page table. This is because each page table entry consumes large amounts of physical memory, and it is difficult to keep track of how much of physical memory is actually being used, because each page table is going to take 1 million entries means and if there are too many processes in the computer's memory, then keeping track of how much of memory is consumed by each of the page tables of those processes is going to become difficult. So that's why we go in further to solve that problem. We have the next method of structuring the page table. This method is called as inverted page table. So in this inverted page table, most important thing which you have to remember is only one page table is going to be kept in the system. We are not going to have one page table for each of the process in the system. We are going to have only one page table in the system. Only one page table is going to be maintained. And what is this one page table going to contain? This one page table is going to contain one entry for each real frame in the physical memory. Okay. Just try to understand the difference. In the previous methods, we are going to have one page table for each process. The different pages of the process all is not going to be in physical memory. Some will be in memory, some will be on the disk. But all the page information is going to be stored in the page table of a particular process. That resulted in huge amount of memory consumption. That's why we go in for this method, where for all the frames which exist in the physical memory, it is going to store the information about which page is residing in that frame. Okay, for all the frames residing in the physical memory, which page resides in that frame and that page belongs to which process. Okay, that is the meaning of inverted page table. Has one entry for each real frame of the physical memory. That means what are all the frames in the physical memory, what are all the blocks in the physical memory, and that blocks are occupied by which pages, and that pages belongs to which process. Like that, it's going to store the information. So instead of having every process having a page table and keeping track of all the pages of a process through the page table, what we do is we keep track of all the frames in the physical memory by using only one page table. Here we are not going to have n number of page tables. We are going to have only one page table in the memory, and that one page table contains information about which frame, which real frame in the physical memory stores which page, and that page belongs to which process. Okay, remember that here the page table, or I mean the inverted page table, is going to store the page information of many different processes, not a single process. Okay. So this is your inverted page table architecture. This is your inverted page table architecture. So here you see that this is your inverted page table. So generally in your hashed page table, you will be usually containing the virtual page number here, right? But in the inverted page table, that page table is going to store information about all the real frames in the physical memory, and which frame contains which page, and that page belongs to which process. So belongs to which process means we need to store some information about the process. So each process is uniquely identified by the process ID, right? So the inverted page table is going to contain two fields. One is process ID and the other one is page number. Okay, process ID, page number. So here each virtual address generated by the CPU, this is the virtual address or logical address generated by the CPU. In inverted page table architecture, the logical address generated by the CPU so far used to contain only two fields. But in inverted page table architecture, the logical address generated by the CPU consists of three fields. Because with the logical address, we need to identify the process also. So it is going to contain process ID, page number, and the displacement. Okay. So this process ID and page number is used for searching the page table. This process ID and page number is used as an index into the page table. Process ID and page number is used as an index. And once we find a match, let's say we find a match of this process ID and page number at entry I of the page table, then that entry number, that position number I, is added with the displacement to generate the physical address. Okay, that position of process ID is added with displacement. That is, the displacement is nothing but the position of the instruction within the page. Okay, we need to find the address of a particular instruction which the CPU wants to access within the page, within that page. So we add the displacement with the entry of this process ID with the position of this process ID in the inverted page table to generate the physical address of that particular byte of instruction which the CPU wants to access. So this is your inverted page table architecture. Just take 1 second to look at this inverted page table architecture. The difference is, in all other architectures, CPU will generate logical address which contains only two fields, but here we are going to it is going to contain three fields, and the inverted page table is going to store process IDs also. This is one unique feature which is there only in this architecture. Process ID is stored, and another unique feature is it is not going to store one page table for one process. It's going to store only one page table for all the processes in the system. And it is going to store information about each real frame in the physical memory. It's going to store which frame number is occupied by which page, and that page belongs to which process. Okay, now when you analyze the advantage and disadvantage of this inverted page table, obviously we don't store too many page tables here. Only one page table is maintained for all the processes in the system, and so it decreases the amount of memory required. So too much of memory requirement is drastically reduced when you use the concept of inverted page tables. But again, even though the size of page table is decreased, so memory requirement is less in the inverted page table, the time required to search the inverted page table becomes large. Why it becomes large is you have that inverted page table, right? That inverted page table is sorted in the order of physical addresses. But but the searching on the inverted page table will happen in the order of logical addresses. In the order of logical addresses generated by the CPU. So it is like you want to search some list in ascending order, but the list is in descending order. Then you have to search. Sometimes you may have to search the entire list fully to get your desired element. So you have to search it in the order of logical addresses. But it is since it is being containing the information of each real frame in the physical memory, it is actually sorted and kept in the order of physical addresses. So searching operation takes a lot of time in this inverted page table. That is one disadvantage. So in order to limit the amount of time required for search, one method is you can also use a hash table here along with the inverted page table. But again, the hash table is also will be residing in the memory. And so when you use a hash table, you need two memory accesses, one for accessing the hash table and one for accessing the inverted page table. Another disadvantage of using the inverted page tables is we cannot implement a concept called shared memory. When we learned about paging, we saw that pages can be shared when paging concept is implemented. But in shared memory, multiple logical addresses will be mapped onto one physical address. But in inverted page table concept, one physical address can be mapped onto only one logical address. More than one logical address cannot be mapped onto one physical address. So due to that reason, shared memory concept cannot be implemented with the concept of inverted page tables. So that is a disadvantage of using the inverted page tables. So that is all about the concept of paging and the structure of the page tables. Paging is a very important concept from the university exam point of view. Okay, most of the questions which is asked in the most of the questions from memory management topic usually comes from the topic of paging only. Okay, so never skip any subtopic also in the topic of paging. All the topics have to be learned. So the next topic, next and last topic in module 3 is about the concept of segmentation. So what is the meaning of the segmentation is, so first we learned about contiguous memory allocation. It is a scheme where the process is being allocated consecutive locations in the computer's memory. Consecutive means continuous locations, continuous memory addresses. But that resulted in the problem of fragmentation. And so we needed an alternative. That's why the two methods were proposed. One method is paging. That's what we have been learning so far. The other method to avoid contiguous memory allocation and the problems which comes with contiguous memory allocation is segmentation. Okay, what is segmentation is, normally in paging, the user's view of memory is considered to be a linear array of bytes. In paging, we assume that memory is considered to be a linear array of bytes, and each position in the array is going to store instructions or data. That is what we assume as the user's view of the logical memory in paging concept. But actually, user doesn't view the memory like that. User's view of a program or user's view of memory is different. How user will view a program is, user views a program as a collection of modules. Modules is nothing but segments. User generally views a program as a collection of modules or as a collection of segments. So by segment, what I mean, let's say you have a C program. For the programmer who wrote the C program, main function is one module. He may use some other user-defined functions in the programs. Let's say he uses a function for calculating square root. Then square root function is another module. The part in which arrays are declared is another module or segment. The part in which local variables and global variables are declared, that may be another segment. The part in which symbol table is constructed, that may be another segment. The part in which stack is used, that may be another segment. The part in which objects are declared, that may be another segment. So user views the program as a collection of segments or modules, not like a linear array of. The user is not bothered about where the main function is loaded into the computer's memory and where the square root function is loaded, whether the square root function is loaded before the main function or after the main function. We are not bothered about it. We only view the program as a collection of segments or modules, and we try to write our code to execute our required functionality. We are not bothered about where it is loaded in the computer's memory. So the segmentation is a memory management scheme that supports the user's view of memory. Okay, user views the memory as a collection of modules or segments, and is not bothered about which order the segments are loaded into the computer's memory. And this view of the computer's memory is supported by in the concept of segmentation. Okay, in the concept of segmentation, a program is viewed as a collection of segments or modules. That is the entire concept behind the story. So this diagram shows the user's view of a program. So as I told you, if you have a program, then the logical address of a program, the programmer views the logical address space of a program to contain a list of modules or segments. Main function may be one segment, subroutines or procedures can be another segment, stack may be another segment, symbol table of the program might be another segment, etc. So this is segmentation. So we are going to view the program or the process as a collection of segments in the segmentation concept. In the paging concept, the process is viewed as a collection of pages. But here in segmentation, the process is viewed as a collection of segments or modules. Okay, and each segment is going to be referred by its number. We are going to say main function is segment 0, subroutine can be told as segment 1, and so on. So then in this scheme, every logical address which is generated by the CPU is going to contain, see the segmentation hardware, and then we'll come back to theory. So here you have the CPU. Every logical address generated by the CPU is going to contain two parts. What are they? In paging, it is going to contain page number and offset, right? In segmentation concept, every logical address generated by the CPU is going to contain segment number and offset. Okay, this segment number which is there in the logical address is going to be compared and used as an index into the segment table. It is used for searching the segment table. Okay, in the segment table, it is going to contain two fields: base register, value of base, and value of limit for that particular segment. Okay, value of base and value of limit for that particular segment. CPU generates segment number. That segment number is used for indexing into the segment table, and each segment number, each entry in the segment table is going to contain two fields. One is the value of base of the segment. The other one is the value of limit of the segment. Now, what is the meaning of this base and limit? Base represents the starting address of the segment, and limit represents the length of the segment. Okay. So in the segmentation, we are going to have a hardware for storing we are going to have segment table, and in the segment table, we are going to have two fields, base and limit. Base represents the starting address of the segment, and limit represents the length of the segment. Okay. So it also does, so first it performs the checking to find the base and the limit of that particular segment number which is there in the logical address. Then with that, it takes out the limit part. Limit indicates the length of the segment. Okay, let's say for segment 0, base may have the value 1000 and limit may have the value 1500, which means for segment 0, its starting address is 1000, length is 1500, which means from 1000 till 2500, all that addresses from 1000 to 2500 can be occupied by segment 0. That is the meaning. So the offset which is given here, no, that should be within 2500. So I'm checking whether the offset which is given here is less than the limit. Okay, first I'm trying to fetch the value of that particular segment from the segment table. Then I check whether the offset which is given here is within this limit. The limit is, if the starting address is 1000 and the limit is 1500, then the last address will be 2500. So the offset which is given here should be less than 1500. So we check whether the offset which is given here is less than the limit. If the offset is not less than the limit, immediately a trap will be set to the operating system. Otherwise, if it is yes, if it's correct, if it's not less, if it is if the offset is greater than the limit, immediately a trap will be set to the operating system. If the offset is less than the limit, it is allowed to proceed. Then we add the offset with the value of base. Let's say the value of base is 1000 and the value of offset which is given here is 50, then 1000 plus 50 will be added here and 1050 will be generated as the physical address, and whichever instruction is there in the address 1050, that will be fetched and returned to the CPU. Okay, this is how segmentation is used to generate the physical address. Your segmentation hardware is going to contain segment table which will contain the starting address of the segment and limit of the segment. We check whether the offset given here is within the limit, and then we add the value of base register with the offset to generate the physical address of each byte in the actual physical memory. So coming back to our theory, as I told you, each logical address is going to contain segment number and offset. And when you use segmentation architecture, the compiler itself will create segments. Who will create the segments? The segments are created by the compiler when the program is being compiled. And the segment table is going to contain two fields, base and limit. Base contains the starting address of the segment and limit specifies the length of the segment. This shows an example of segmentation. So here you can see that for a typical program, there are 5 different segments. Segment 0 represents subroutine, and segment 1 represents some square root function. Segment 2 represents the main function. Segment 4 may represent the symbol table of the program. Segment 3 may represent the stack of the program. Okay, so here we are having the segment table for this particular program. So what does the segment table contain? Segment table, see, this is segment numbers. Segment table is indexed by the segment numbers. And for each segment number, we have the value of its base field and limit field. Say, for example, segment 0, that is your subroutine. The value of starting address is 1400 and the length is 1000. That means segment 0 represented by subroutine can start at the address 1400 and it will end at the address 2400. 1400 plus 1000 is 2400. So from 1400 till 2400 segment 0 can occupy. You can see here. From 1400 to 2400 is occupied by segment 0. Similarly, take the main program which is segment 2. For segment 2, the value of base register is 4300, which means starting address of segment 2 is 4300. And the value of limit register is 400, which means 4300 plus 400. Limit is nothing but the length of the segment. So 4300 plus 400 is 4700. So from 4300 till 4700 can be occupied by segment 2. So you can see here from 4300 to 4700 is occupied by segment 2. So then how will a physical address be calculated? Let's say the CPU wants to access byte number 53 of segment 2. So segment number in the address, logical address of the CPU, segment number will be 2 and offset will be 53, right? So then the OS will check to see the value of base register value of segment 2. What is the value of base register value of segment 2? It is 4300. Okay, it will check to see the limit, that is 400 for segment 2. Limit is less than the offset. So sorry, offset is less than the limit. So if it is true, then it proceeds to calculate the physical address. How will the physical address be calculated? The starting address, that is the base address value plus the offset. The base address value is 4300 plus offset is nothing but your 53, that is the position of the instruction within the segment. So 4300 plus 53 will be 4353, which means the instruction at the address 4353 inside the location of segment 2 will be accessed in the computer's memory and it will be returned to the CPU. So this is how segmentation is actually carried out. So that is all about segmentation. So as a continuation of the segmentation architecture, as I told you, the segment number is used for indexing into the segment table. And then if the offset which is given in the logical address of the CPU, if that offset is less than the limit, then we proceed to generate the physical address. And here also in paging, we had protection bits, right? Here also protection bits can be associated with segments. We had protection bits with page numbers. So similarly here, we can have protection bits with segmentation also. And we saw about sharing of pages in paging concept. Similarly, code sharing can be done among processes in segmentation concept also. But code sharing will happen at the segment level. Segments can be shared among processes. And another thing is, each segment is going to be of varying length, right? Your main function length may be different from the length of your stack or the length of your symbol table. So segments are going to be of varying length. So this may actually result during memory allocation, we may encounter the dynamic storage allocation problem. I hope you will remember the meaning of dynamic storage allocation problem. Dynamic storage allocation problem is nothing but a problem in which, suppose if a process requests a memory of size n, how to allocate that request of size n from a block of memory of fixed size. You have the memory which is split up into different blocks of varying sizes. So how to allocate this request of size n from the available block of memory which contains blocks of varying sizes. This is the dynamic storage allocation problem. So that problem will happen in your segmentation, because each segment is going to be a varying length. Memory may also be broken down into different sizes when the memory is allocated and deallocated. So then how to allocate and fit them to match them together, that problem is called dynamic storage allocation problem. And this segment table is also going to reside in memory only, just like your page table. And so we have a separate register called a segment table based register, which is going to store the address of the segment table in the memory. Where the segment table resides, that addresses will be stored in a register called as the segment table based register. And this segment table based register information may be stored in the process control block of the process. So that is all about the concept of segmentation.